Hello, hello, hello. My name is Karita Robert Green, and welcome to the Unwrap Your GIFT Podcast, the show where we dance in conversation about all things to do with life, how to find your gifts, and hear stories from inspirational people around the world. You will learn how to celebrate who you truly are, unwrap your gifts, and step into your true, authentic power. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I am so excited today to be joined by the amazing Jacqui Campbell. Thank you, Jacqui. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Karita.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for inviting me.
You're welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I'm just going to let everybody know a bit of information about who you are, and then we'll jump into the interview. So Jacqui is a youth mental health expert, author, director, and founder of the Julian Campbell Foundation. The Julian Campbell Foundation is an early intervention charity that supports children and young people to manage their moods, well-being, and mental health, helping them to turn their lives around and manage their well-being throughout their lifetime through mood mentoring. Wow, 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 wow. Thank you so much, Jacqui, for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm really excited. Very excited. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'd just like to let you share a bit of information about your journey so far, so we can get to know who you are and what you stand for in the world.
Yeah. My life started when, after my brother's suicide. And before my brother's suicide, I was a teacher. And I really loved it. I was a science teacher. I turned into a consultant after I had some really great results from Ofsted. Oh. And my passion was to go into failing schools and help and turn them around so they were succeeding. So the children left with, really great grades, because for me, it was like we'd given them a passport for the rest of their lives. The more, examinations and the better the quality of their grades, the more able they were to have greater choices for that platform to go on to take A-levels, go to university. And I loved it. And after my brother's suicide and then seeing another life started, I started seeing why I was here. Why, started seeing our young people suffering from anxiety, stress, and depression, and that there wasn't prompt intervention while they were at school. So I saw that when I was in schools, that while I was there, like driving up these results, that there were a lot of our young people stressed, anxious, depressed, and going through all types of things that weren't really, and we weren't helping them to address it at a significantly young age. And that's where I saw the need for something that was more important. Because for me, before, it was most important to have those qualifications. Yeah. But then I got to see that actually good mental health is far outweighs that. It's far more important. Yeah,
wow. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Thank you so much for sharing that so far. Sorry to hear about the loss of your brother. Yeah. And this is a very, very, very important topic that we're covering today. And you talked about how you used to chase the titles before, right? And be in that space of chasing the titles. And then you had this incident that made you think, whoa, let me just really look at my life purpose. Like, what was that like for you? What was that like for you? That transition from chasing the titles to having this now mission in life.
It was liberating, really liberating. It wasn't something I stepped into easily and straight away. Yeah. Why me? Why do I have to do this? Why can't I just be, going to parties and having a good time? So there was some resistance. And who I was before is like, my value or my identity like to have those titles. Because then, like if I had the title of doctor, for example, and that's how I used to go into schools, like, I'd get insulted. I noticed sometimes that some people call me doctor, some people call me miss, and like, I would take that as a slight, actually. I take that personally, because for me, the title was giving me something that I didn't think I had, like some value or some worth.
Yes. So you had a big attachment to the title, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of people listening here who can relate to whether it's a doctor or a big job title that you get really attached. Your identity becomes linked to that thing that you have. You know, what was the impact? You said that you got frustrated when people used to sometimes get that wrong or call you the wrong name, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in others as well,
Yeah.
like some would actually say no, doctor, and they would insist on the title. Me, I just like make them wrong.
Yeah.
And start kind of like criticizing them inside, like, you just see how you are. What's your problem? Like, why can't you? This is my title, and I did it in schools for a purpose, because especially with the schools that I used to work at, that had a high Afro-Caribbean contingency, for me to use my title. I wanted to show that it's really easy and it's possible to be able to get whatever you want. So it wasn't that I was just doing it for myself because I wanted to be called doctor. It was for that purpose.
Yeah, the visible kind of role model as well. What people, there's a lot of people that I've seen over the years, they haven't actually necessarily seen doctors that look like us. So to be that person in an environment where they may not have seen it before as well would have been really powerful. So what was it like tell us a bit more about what you're doing now with your charity, and tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So after my brother's death in 2007, I knew what I wanted to do in that moment. I remember being in his funeral and, giving the eulogy. And in that moment, it was really self-defining. I don't want other families to suffer the way that I saw myself and my parents suffer. I wanted to provide some kind of support. And that's something that I really was passionate about in that moment. However, it took me a couple of years to get over the mourning, because I was in a way destroyed. I was destroyed, because I took it for granted that me and my brother, we would be just like, hanging out for decades to come. So it was just getting over that shock. And then in 2009, I started Julian Campbell Foundation. So I started the foundation in his name, and it almost was like he was alive again, because he was there. And I remember when I first saw the website, I just really felt overcome, like, oh my goodness, like, look at this. It's almost like, he might have died, but there's others that can live through what we've learned. And I started looking at what would have made the difference to him, such that he would be the best possible version of himself. And he would have turned his life round. And that's where we came up with the concept Mood Mentors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a flagship position. So our mentors, they're mood mentors. They don't mentor, they're not academic mentors. They don't mentor young people and children at risk of exclusion. They mentor to the mood.
Okay.
So they mentor around stress, anxiety, depression, and showing the young person how to manage their stress, anxiety, and depression, giving them a little toolbox that they can use. So once they've finished their mentoring, it's usually up to 3 months, that they can then go off, and they know when they're feeling a bit anxious and depressed or stressed. And furthermore, they know what to do about it, to quit it or to eliminate it.
So it's just about building that kind of self-awareness, like right now my emotions are feeling low, and then or they're feeling good. So just explain a bit, because I'm sure we'll have parents here listening who may have children that have a lot of experience of different highs and lows as you do as a child. So what is it a bit more about? Your mission is it stamp out teen suicide?
So this is our mission and our vision, to stamp out teen suicide. So I want to be in a world where it isn't a conversation, it isn't an option for our young people to be making a permanent decision from a temporary emotion, because a lot of our children think that the emotion is permanent. They don't see that it's temporary. So a lot of the children that we see and we mentor, we do drama workshops and dance, and they see through doing these activities, it changes their mood, and so this is like a really self-defining moment for them to say, oh my goodness, okay then, it's not fixed. I'm not like this forever. There's something that I can do about it. So it's really an important gift. It's an important realization for them. And I remember after my brother died, it was around 2009, I saw this documentary on bipolar, and my brother had bipolar, you see, and I was watching it, you know, avidly. And we had our, you know, Stephen Fry was leading it. And I remember in the second part of the documentary, he was interviewing somebody like Dr. Liz Miller. And Dr. Liz Miller, she had bipolar disorder. And when she was 26 years old, she was a top neurosurgeon, and she had an episode and she was sectioned. And from all of that, she came out and she wrote a book. And at the time of that interview, she wasn't using any drugs or anything like that. She'd been able to just kind of like, you know, really get things under control just through a healthy lifestyle. And she'd manage her moods in a way that was called using the mood map. And it's the mood map that I really like, Karita. And it's a mood map. It's like it's a map of the moods. Yeah. So it's like a graph. It's like you know, I can send it to you afterwards, but because after being the science teacher, like graphs, you know, really speak to me, and there's all of these moods on the graph, you know, depending on whether it's high energy or whether it's low energy. And then you can see, once you can see where you are, you decide, well, do I want to stay there, or do I want to change? And that's where the mood mentor would help you deciding, you know, depending on where you want to move, you know, then, you know, that you can do an activity, or you can speak with your friends. And a lot of children, they know already because they're doing things, but they don't realize that they can actually directly impact their mood.
Yeah.
So I reached out and started speaking with Dr. Miller, or Lizzie. And then, you know, for a while she was part of our organization as a trustee. And then together we started building up this brand using the mood map. And actually the mood map is at the cornerstone of all of the services we provide.
Yes. Wow. Do you know, this mood map is so powerful. And what you just talked about, a lot of young people nowadays, you know, we've got social media and there's a lot of pressure. We had peer pressure before, but like with social media, I'm sure the moods go up and down, and it's just being aware of how they're feeling. Like, what impact would you say kind of social media and that type of stuff has had on young people, especially through the lockdown we've just experienced? What have you seen of your charity that's been happening?
Yes, in actual fact, this was a time of our biggest growth during the lockdown, and we put all of our services online, and so we were able to continue with our drama workshops, because with our drama workshops we were looking at moods through the mood mapping, and also looking at important aspects of growing up which are important to children. So we're looking at body image and also the dangers of social media. And when we did this, I just remember that, you know, we did it with 300 children, and not one of us went into the school out of respect for the, you know, the distancing and, you know, quarantining and all of this, you know, that the pandemic brought. And I was really moved, because I didn't think it would work. Like, how can you have a drama workshop that isn't like up close and personal? It doesn't work. But it was just, I was moved. Everybody was moved. And seeing the young people and how they were interacting with what we were going through with them, like, you know, looking at social media, the dangers of social media. We had one of our team who used to be a young person receiving a service user, and she talked about her experiences of grooming, which just captivated all of the young people. Like, you know, we're talking about 300 here. And as she was speaking, you couldn't hear a pin drop. And what she wanted to portray, she wanted to share that this grooming happened over a period of years.
Wow.
You know, and she wanted them to young people to understand that it isn't just you have one conversation and then that's it. This man, and the man that was grooming her was married, you know, was having conversations from when she was 16 years old to when she was like 19 years old, and it was of a sexual nature, you know, and she at the time, you know, just went with it, you know, because because she was vulnerable. She wasn't really speaking with her parents. and he used to make her feel good about herself with the compliments. And then looking at online as well, that's really so important. And, you know, because what I've seen is that a lot of young people, they look at social media and they see that as a barometer, and they want to achieve what they see on social media. So, you know, I've heard a lot of people, they not have fake accounts, but they might hire a plane, and people think young people think it's their own plane. You know, they're doing all of these things that look wonderful, but it's just not true. And then young people are really impressionable, and they're looking at the body images, they're looking at the lifestyles, and they're thinking that it's something that they can achieve. And then they start making themselves wrong because they feel they haven't got what it takes to be like this, not realizing that a lot of it isn't even real.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that fake pressure online as well, with what we think is real sometimes, and then comparing it back to ourselves. You know, I remember growing up, I had such a challenging time as a young person, and I used to compare myself to everybody. And when you do that all the time, you just end up feeling so inadequate, and there's always something wrong. You can't see the goods. And by being mindful of your emotions and your moods, that's such a powerful place to be in, because when you have the right tools, you know, a lot of trauma happens as well. Let's be honest and say there's some people that have been through so many traumatic situations in the past, and whether it's family or just situations in general, where having that negative mindset is challenging to control. And, you know, mental health is a real thing. It's a real thing. And I always like to make the distinction between, you know, mental health and counseling and going into the past and dealing with some of those issues as well. Because sometimes people try and like skim over it and think you could just get on and move with it. But when you're not aware of your thoughts and feelings, it's really hard to move on. And sometimes we feel like we're all alone. We feel like we're alone with our thoughts, and we are most of the times. And we're not really sure when is the right time to ask for help. So for a lot of people out there, this topic is very close to my heart. This topic is very close to my heart because I've not really shared with hardly anybody, or only very close people to me, that when I was younger and I was growing up as a child, I was very, as I mentioned, very trying to compare myself to everybody else. I had a disformed ear when I was younger, and it used to look like an elf. So people used to bully me in school, call me Spock, and say that, you know, elf and ET and all these horrible things. And every time I went into school, I used to hate myself. And I thought, if all these people are being horrible to me and being nasty to me, that must mean I'm a horrible person. And I didn't have that resilience or mindset at the time to be able to say, actually, I love myself. I didn't have that love. I had a lot of self-hate. And a lot of people see me now and say, oh, Miss Pollyanna, happy-go-lucky, always positive. But back then I wasn't. And I'm going to put a little trigger out there that at some point in my teens, I actually tried to take my own life as well. It got to a stage where it was so bad, my thoughts were so out of control, I didn't want to be here anymore. So I really want to show that sometimes you don't know what people are going through. So it's so important to be kind to people. Since then, I've had a lot of counseling and done a lot of mindset work to rebuild myself. And now I know who I am. I love myself, but I still have to tell myself that daily. And if you're in a situation where sometimes it feels like things may be dark or not going in a way that you want them to, being honest with yourself is so important. As Jacqui mentioned, that mood mentor, being aware of your emotions. Am I feeling good? No, I'm not feeling good. How long have I not been feeling good for? Sometimes that one day can go on for weeks or months or even years, and you're not able to catch it. So I just wanted to put in that as well, to say that you never know what people are going through. And that's why it's important to be honest with yourself, be kind, and get the right help and support. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jacqui. And for those, what tips would you give to people who may be in a tough situation right now? What help or support is there out there for people? I know you've got your charity as well. And what other support just out there in the world of support for that type of things do you know about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's tragedies and things that happen all of the time. When I say that, I'm talking about people dying or, You know, there might be some kind of, you know, something that's happened that has you start feeling anxious or depressed, you know, because it's a natural reaction to an adverse circumstance. So it's that, you know, so please don't be making yourself wrong for reacting in a certain way and feeling down in a low mood or stressed. It's only when, but usually we will bounce back up in when, you know, maybe not after a bereavement, but we will get back to, you know, within a week or so, you know, we'll find ways to get back to kind of like to a norm. It's when it continues after those 2 weeks, and, you know, and it's something that's happening for a month, that, you know, that you would, you know, start looking elsewhere for help. And I know that we're one of, you know, many organizations, you know, that work with children, and it's really important to work with young people, because 80% of mental health illnesses are actually seen by the time a young person is 18 years old.
Wow.
So if 80% of them are already seen by that age, there's a lot more that we can be doing as an early intervention, showing young people how to manage their moods. The schools that we work with, they're much more proactive. You know, we want to put a mood mentor and drop-in mentor in every school, you know, because the mentors we find has a different listening to counsellor. There's nothing wrong with counselling. There's nothing wrong with being a psychologist either, but the mentors, young people gravitate more towards the mentors, and, you know, than they would do to, you know, towards counsellors and psychologists. And I'd say that being an adult, it's really important to listen.
Yeah.
Because with our young people, and as a parent as well, you know, and I saw it a lot when I was a teacher, like parents are working hard, they're paying bills, they're doing all of these things, and sometimes they're just working all of these extraordinary hours and they're doing the best that they can do. And sometimes they haven't got time to listen to their children. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Usually it's more like, have you done your homework and this and that? That's the kind of conversation. And then with our mentors, our mood mentors, they're there and they listen to the young person for the hour, and they listen for what it is that they're dealing with. And for a lot of young people, that's the only time that they really get listened to and somebody gets them. So it's really important for us to listen to our young people and listen to what it is that they're dealing with and support them in that. And sometimes just listening, you know, I mean, when I was a school teacher, before I came into all of this, I had many young people used to come to me and talk to me about a whole lot of stuff, and they didn't want to worry their parents, you know, so that's why they wouldn't tell them. And I really get that. However, you know, if there's no one to speak with, then what happens with this information? Like if somebody is trying to abuse them, or, you know, or something like this, it's just really, you know, it's really, and for that reason, it's really important for us as parents, uncles and aunties, friends, or whatever, to really listen to the young person that we have around us, because we don't have to just leave it to the professionals.
It's listening, trusting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Providing that trusting space and that listening ear.
Yeah.
You touched on a good point. We're so busy nowadays, and you know, that time when your child is like, you know, do you have a minute? And like, oh, 1 minute, I'm just going to finish this thing off and then I'll get back to you. And then before you know it, the time's gone and you haven't had a chance to get back. And then that feeling, or that thing that they wanted to tell you, that's just bottled up inside. Yeah. So it's very powerful work. The listening, that point you made about the listening.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. And I would say as well for us, because we look at young people and we, you know, the ones that we mentor, we encourage them to measure their mood 4 times a day, when they wake up in the morning, in the early afternoon, late afternoon and evening. Because in doing that, they can find out more about themselves. Sometimes they can find that they're in a low mood. It could be because they've been with a particular person, or, you know, or they've done something. But then also as well, it's good for them, because then they can start doing things if they want to change their moods and get out of being in a low mood. going out for a walk, talking to a friend, so they can be more proactive and they can see their moods changing and the impact that their behavior has. I mean, I would say that if you're stressed or you're anxious, then doing kind of like, there's exercise where you go down and you jump up. Is it star jumps? Doing 5 or 10 of those, that is an instant, that will drag you out of being in a low mood, like high energy kind of, stress, and start bringing you back to the right side of the map. So we have all of these little tricks that we can do, like what do you do if you want to change your mood like instantaneously? So we've got a little list of things.
Wow. But it is important to have that check-in, like, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah,
I think that check-in is key to get that, like, the barometer of where you are right now on that mood map. Wow.
I have to say, before I started using it, because I wanted to use it myself first, and then I could start showing other people, and training other people how to use it. I just wasn't in touch with myself, Carita, and I'd lost so much touch that I had chronic fatigue, and so I just couldn't. And one day I just couldn't get up because I wasn't listening to myself. I was drinking lots of coffee, Red Bull to get myself out of bed, and I know now that Red Bull is like you're putting your energy. It's like a credit card. You have to pay it back at some time. In those times, I didn't realize. Well, let me just do it, and then it didn't work, and that was it. But it was important for me to get into that way, that state, for me to see and to finally start listening to my body and looking at my moods.
And you've touched on something really important there. A lot of the time, people who are, seen as successful or really passionate and like helping other people forget to check in on those people sometimes. They say check in on your strong friends, see how they're doing, because it's easy for people to mask up how they really are feeling inside, because we're always helping other people. So checking in on your strong friends is so important too. So I just want to, this is the Unwrap Your GIFT podcast, and it's all about empowering people to unwrap their gifts and step into their power. And I'm really grateful that you have been sharing the importance of being mindful of how you feel, and also the importance of suicide awareness in young people. And it does sometimes start that young. But in regards to the Unwrap Your GIFT podcast, what would you say is one of your gifts that you have?
I would say, and this is because it's said to me, because when I stepped out into the field of charity, I had no idea of, all I knew was that I wanted to save lives, and I wanted to help young children. I didn't, but I've been told that I've been able to have really, great conversations and invite people, different people from all different walks of life into the cause.
Yes.
So one of them that I'm really pleased with was we had a conversation with Tito Jackson. And Tito Jackson was our he's Michael Jackson's older brother. He also wrote a foreword on 2 of my books. The second one still isn't published. I'll get around to it someday. And he was our wellbeing international wellbeing ambassador. And it's not that I see it as a gift. I see it that mental health and suicide prevention, it touches more people than we think. And sometimes when I'm having these conversations with people, they're moved because they've been touched by it.
Yeah. And that is it. Unless people share with you, you don't really know their backstory. And it is it's a triggering and also sensitive topic for a lot of people for more reasons than you may know. I always like to ask, what's one of your favorite quotes?
I love Marianne Williamson.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was a quote. I mean, I don't know the exact words, but the one that really kind of grabs me the most is something that Nelson Mandela said in one of his speeches, and it was using her words, and it was it was words to the effect that it's not our darkness that frightens us, it's our light. Because when we are there and we're giving out all of this light, it gives everybody else the permission to do the same.
Absolutely.
And I just love that.
I love that. I love that. It's not our darkness. It is like, yes, I love it. And I do know the quote you're referring to.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you know that's really powerful? Because again, that touches back into when we were talking about the people who have got a lot of light to give in the world. Sometimes they have the darkest moments that nobody knows about. Whew, wow, this has been an amazing interview, Jacqui. Thank you so much for your time. What's one message that you'd love to leave with everybody today? What's one message that you'd love to leave with everyone today?
My one message is that everything is fleeting. So, the good times don't last forever, and then the bad times don't last forever.
That's so true. Wow. Thank you so much, Jacqui. You've been an amazing guest. I've been touched. I've been moved. I've been inspired. And I'm sure everybody that's listening will also be. So remember, guys, we are all born with a gift. We all have special skills, talents, and gifts that we can use to be successful. And now's the time to unwrap your gifts. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the podcast and see you soon. Bye. I always like to answer